Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets. Interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I am your host, Kim Wannup. How are you? Summertime. Kids are out of school. The traffic is better in LA. Woo woo. I mean, that's a major thing in Los Angeles. I don't know about anybody, but I look forward to summertime because traffic is better. But yeah, and it's such a weird, I'm down here at the beach area now, but I only get the sun for about an hour or two a day. It's completely overcast. It basically rains or mists, morning dew, as my kids say. Morning dew in the mornings, like every day here. I mean, I'm not complaining because I kind of like it, but it's June. It's mid-June. And for me, growing up, June, Memorial Day is the summer. June is supposed to be hot. July, August, hot. End of the summer, Labor Day. I know it's different out here. I never can quite come to terms that it's different out here, but June gloom, man, woofa. Heavy this year. Heavy on the gloom. But I have watched some interesting things in the last couple days. I watched that 3-part documentary series on Netflix called Arnold, about Arnold Schwarzenegger, and what a life. I mean, seriously, what a life. So extraordinary to be so successful in 3 different areas. He's basically had like 3 different careers. It's amazing. And I mean, he talks about his faults. He owns up to things. He talks about his son Joseph and his affair. I never knew how young he was when he met Maria Shriver. I mean, it was all just really interesting. And the go-get attitude and the just persistence, and who knew he was even a millionaire before he was a bodybuilder because of real estate investments. I mean, it's crazy. His life is crazy. There is a scene in the first episode where he goes to the movies and he sees this bodybuilder who is playing Hercules, and it really inspires him. Bodybuilding and film. So funny how that one going to the movies inspired him so much, and it really makes me think about young people and what's affecting them, and our movies, what they used to be. And I know I'm sounding old here, but I hope they are as important to some people as they were to me and many others when we were younger. There's something that clicked when you watched TV or movies to make you want to be in this industry in any capacity. And I hope that's there, because I get kind of worried about people running this industry in the future and how it's all going to turn out. I don't know. This is what I think about. I love it. I love this industry, and I love what we do, and I love everyone's passion. And Arnold. I mean, hell, man, a bodybuilder, a $1 billion box office actor, and a politician. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So I totally recommend that. And it's only a 3-part series. It's hour long each on Netflix. Go for it. Really sidebar here. New Jersey Housewives Reunion Part 3 was such a friggin' letdown. The whole 3-part series was a letdown. We didn't learn anything. Hardly any of the other housewives even got to speak besides Teresa, and I don't know, I just feel let down. I feel like I need like an update after the reunion, where are they now type things, and the people won't talk over each other. I don't know. But that was a bummer. A little bit of a bummer in the eyes of a four-year-olds. I took my boys to see The Little Mermaid, the live action one. And I should say that as a perk of being a Television Academy member, you can join their screening series, which is, I think, $96 a year. And you can go to any movie that they put on. And basically they have like 4 to 5 movies a month, different movies, different genres, everything. The theater's super nice. You can't bring food or drink in. That's kind of a bummer, but it's super comfortable. Great seats, stadium seating, very nice. To me, it's an hour plus away, kinda sometimes. So this is my first time taking advantage of something, and I thought, well, this is perfect. It's you and a guest. And any additional people, I think up to 4 is $5. I mean, seriously, it cost me $75 to take the boys, just me and them, and a bucket of popcorn, to see Super Mario Brothers when it came out. So, $96 for the whole year. If I go again, I got my money's worth. So, anyway, they were excited. I took them to the Television Academy. I took their picture with the big Emmy statue, and that was fun for me. But they liked seeing all the statues in the courtyards, that the bus and everything of like the Hall of Fame people and just television greats. So they actually really liked seeing all those little statues. Got into the movie. The CGI, the effects are fantastic. I don't even know how they do the hair in the water and make it look like that. That's a lot of work, I bet, and that looks fantastic. How the shine and the sense of movement and everything in all of the design, I thought was fantastic. The costumes, great. Makeup, great. Everything's great. It's boring. And I don't know how you made it boring, but we were an hour and a half into the movie and they didn't even get to kiss the girl. Like Sebastian didn't even sing Kiss the Girl yet. So we left just before Kiss the Girl because, I don't know, Eric has a song and then she had an extra song. It was just, I don't know, you got to speed it up if you want kids. I don't know. I really haven't really watched many of their live actions. I didn't watch The Beauty and the Beast. I only took a look at it for sets. I can't even think of any of the other ones. But, I don't know. So they walked out. They kept saying, like, where's Flounder? Where's Flounder? And I was like, well, Flounder's not the star of the show here. I don't think he's coming back for a while till the end. I also found Ursula weird because she's an octopus, and as a person octopus and upside down and everything. Melissa McCarthy looked weird. She was fantastic and a great like tribute to, I do not know the actress who did that voice, but she was actually entertaining enough that I could have watched it, but I was busy analyzing this octopus dress she had on. I don't know. So, Little Mermaid, great in some ways and not in others, I would say. But yeah, so that's been my week. I hope everyone out there had a great Father's Day, all the fathers. Happy Father's Day to you. Again, I see that you have been enjoying all of our Emmy hopeful nominees. Voting ends on the 26th. So you have a little bit of time. And the SDSA announced their nominations for the television awards. And I'm going to quickly go through this, okay? Here we go. The decor design of 1 Hour Contemporary, The Old Man, Poker Face, Secession, White Lotus, Yellowstone. Decor for fantasy, science fiction, Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosity, The Last of Us, Lord of the Rings, Mandalorian, Wednesday. Decor of a period series, 1923, The Great, Marvelous Miss Maisel, Monster, Jeffrey Dahmer story, Perry Mason, Power Book 3. I don't know what that is. And then decor and design of television movie limited series, Daisy Jones and the Six, George and Tammy, Welcome to Chippendales, White House Plumbers, Queen Charlotte. Half-hour single camera, The Bear, Beef, Emily in Paris, Only Murders in the Building, Ted Lasso. And finally, half-hour multicam, Bob Hart's Abishola, The Connors, How I've Met Your Father, Night Court, and The 90s Show. Now, you can listen to many, many, many of these people on this podcast if you want to go back and listen to people talk about Secession or The Last of Us or, tomorrow, Perry Mason. There you go. Today, George and Tammy. Only Murders in the Building. Last week, we got that one. So, 90s Show. We had that earlier in the year. So, if anybody wants to go back and listen to episodes to help cast your votes, this is kind of why I'm helping people out. I just want to get the good work out there. So yeah. So on today's episode, I speak with Jonah Markowitz, the production designer behind the critically acclaimed limited series George and Tammy that is airing on Showtime. The series follows the tumultuous relationship between country music legends George Jones and Tammy Wynette. And Jonah's stunning production design transports us to the heart of the country music scene from the 60s through the 90s. We dive into Jonah's creative process, the challenges he faces getting all that period wallpaper, and his use of color and textures to show the relationship of George and Tammy through the decades. So I hope you enjoy. When did you do George and Tammy? Was that?
So it was about a year and a half ago now. Yeah, about 18 months ago.
And did you? I really couldn't even try to count how many sets you had.
Yeah. Well, there was well over 100.
Oh yeah.
Sort of the wonderful thing about doing a limited series as opposed to episodic is that very often instead of having, standing sets, it's more like a feature where you're constantly prepping new sets and just moving to new sets and not really going back to them. So I came from features and I find that actually very exciting because you're constantly doing something new. You're not doing that dance between half the time you're shooting the sets you've already built and half the time you're out scouting and doing other stuff. So it was a great experience actually for that.
Oh, yeah. And where were you? You were on location? Did you have a lot of builds? I mean, I can know in my head what I think the builds are, but I feel like you had a lot of builds.
We did have a lot of builds.
Yeah.
We had 3 sound stages in Wilmington, North Carolina, as well as doing some location builds. And the crews there are fantastic. There's been a film community there for a really long time. So really spectacular construction crew. And built some really big, amazing sets.
Oh my God, yeah. And what was your prep on the show?
So the prep was, as you get a little more time for these limited series too. You're not really thrown into it. So, the prep time was decent. We had so much research to do too, to get all of these sort of legendary concert venues, performing venues, their homes, all the instruments. So we were given a good runway for this project.
Oh, that's nice because, they say 2 out of 3, it can be cheap, you can get it on time and it can look good, but you can only have 2 of those.
Yeah, 2 of the pyramid, exactly.
Yeah.
So, or you can have all 3.
Yeah. If you're lucky.
So yeah, we were given what we needed to succeed for sure by the studio and as well as creatively by the showrunner and the director. John Hilco was the director, Abe Silva was the showrunner, and John directed all of the episodes. So that's kind of another wonderful thing about limited series. Yeah. Of course, it's great to meet new directors and work with new people, but it's also nice to sort of settle into a creative relationship with somebody. And really, it does help sort of keep a constant sort of design language throughout the series.
Oh, definitely. I know the series is based off of their daughter's book, right? Was the daughter in Georgette? Was it Georgette? Was she involved?
Yeah, Georgette. She's in the series. She sings at the very last scene of the series, and she was very involved. And we did a lot of research in the art department, mostly my supervising art director Denise Hudson was the main person in touch with Georgette. And it was really interesting to get research that wasn't visual. You know, I think art departments are so great because they're kind of like the last analog workspaces. You know, we still print everything and put them up on the wall. And it's like, and people love coming in now from different departments because it's just such a visual place. But it was really great speaking to Georgette, and when Denise spoke to Georgette as well, and getting information about, you know, what her mom was like, you know, after the show, or how her mom always made dinner, even though she was performing, or where she liked to sit on the, you know, tour bus. So it was more than just, you know, can we have your family photos? Can we have all the photos? Can we have all your research? It was really kind of discussions about what it was like living in this family.
Well, crazy.
Yeah. And she's actually wonderful. And it is a crazy story, but I think, you know, what Abe does so well with the writing is he really gets to the humanity of these characters. And what we really wanted to show was not all of the moments that the public saw play out on television, although some of that's in the series, of course, but really to kind of open the door to their private lives and what was happening between the two of them as a couple as they progressed through these decades.
Yeah, I mean, the acting is fantastic, along with every creative department you have on there, the costumes, the makeup, the wardrobe, I mean, or the hair, and it's just collectively just a beautiful, beautiful series put together. And even just, I watched it in December and then rewatched it to speak with you, but at first I was like, I don't want to watch another show about like a chick getting beaten and her husband beats her and this and she's always going to be down. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to trek through because it looks so good. Like I couldn't wait to see what wallpaper you were going to use next. So but it does have a turn of like how strong she is and then how weak she is, and it's her own doing, and it wasn't just him beating on her, it was her own demise of herself kind of. And just a fascinating story because I'm not a country music fan, and I don't know anything about these people. I just know that they're famous. So, and then Hillary Clinton saying, "I wouldn't stand by your man." I think that's all I know about them, really. Were you fans of their music or anything before getting involved?
You know, I'm a fan of country music. I've been listening to it more actually as I've gotten older, and what I really love is the poetry of country music. And the lyrics in country music, and they really are these beautiful love songs and poems throughout this series. And you know, I think what Abe also did so well was sort of interweaving the lyrics of the songs with what was happening in the story. So no, I didn't know all of their songs before I started, but you know, you also mentioned collaboration, and I felt like this was such a hugely collaborative, every project is, but we just all collaborated so well and got along so well. And one department that you barely ever deal with as a production designer is the music department. But I became close with Rachel, who is the music producer. And, you know, if I was ever kind of lost about a scene and what it meant or how I wanted to design a set, you could kind of always go to the songs and kind of listen to what the songs were about. And Abe just so beautifully wrote the episodes to match what that emotion was. It was actually a really amazing resource. So I ended up talking to her a lot throughout the series to kind of get on the same page. And then you mentioned the performances as well. And this was also sort of an interesting collaboration. We don't deal with actors all that much as production designers, but Jessica and Michael are so incredible, and she's been producing the series for over a decade, and really was producing it. And I saw them sing together really early on in prep, and it was so inspiring just kind of watching them interact. It was a camera test that we were doing a sound test at as well, and it wasn't just seeing them sing together and obviously the chemistry that they have, but also when they came in, how they talked, how they left. So their performance actually really informed the design and conversations with them throughout the show. So that was a unique and really wonderful experience.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, those camera tests are so important sometimes. I mean, I know I'm usually testing lighting or, you know, fabrics that I might moire or things like that, like in my own head. But I have been around when, you know, they're testing out glasses on a character or like they're looking at different makeup things and you're like, wow, this is like this is it. Like, we're all getting into it here, and we all need to, get on it together. Like, those glasses need to go with that makeup, and the hairstyle needs to go with that scarf or whatever. Like, it's great. I love camera testing. I love that.
Yeah, it is a unique kind of moment in the trajectory of a production, I think. I think we're always kind of fighting to get our stuff shot.
Yeah.
Because they want to shoot the actors, and it's just like everyone's so focused on what their look is and how they're going to be lit and what their chemistry is. And I'm a very like palette heavy designer, and now I really like to test a ton of colors at the camera test.
Yeah.
And to just have that as a Bible as we move through the series, when I'm looking to pick colors, I've already shot them and I can kind of refer to it. But yeah, I find it really hard to get them to actually shoot it many, many times. So it's important to be there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Even if you don't have anything to test, like just to go in
Exactly.
and check it out. The house with the red bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And the canopy and all. Was that real, or is that your interpretation of their bedroom?
So that was, well, I have to think it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of, on these period projects, especially that are real people, which I've done a lot of. Diary of a Teenage Girl, Mapplethorpe,
Yeah.
Two Talent Stupid Gesture. And this film were all both period and based on actual characters. And you're always sort of walking this fine line of verisimilitude and stylization, and where are we going to go with recreating what it was based on research, and where do we go with what we want the scene to say, and is where you use design for each of those sort of goals, right? Mm-hmm. So that bedroom was absolutely inspired by actually Tammy's autobiography. She describes walking in and just being so overblown that everything was red, like the entire house was red. And he was definitely, George Jones had just been to Spain, and he had this Spanish revival furniture kind of obsession. And so all of that was real, but by no means did we try to recreate the furniture and the wallpaper and, the draperies and things. I think you take clues, and then we kind of catered that set to really work for the scene. And so you use a little bit of both.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know if, like you said, I didn't know that the whole house was red, but that to me also was like their passion and like getting the beginning of their relationship, and like, I don't know, I was like, this is, and that bathtub, and like, I couldn't take my eyes off of it.
We had we designed that and had an auto body company paint that red color. That was a really fun set to do for sure. And we also, that was a set where for so long designers, were told, don't use red. Yeah. Can't be red everywhere. We can't balance on their faces. We can't, and technologically there's been a lot of advances, and now a lot of cinematographers and directors are really embracing red. And our color palette on this film was, pretty unique for a 70s series. And we wanted to do everything differently. We wanted to show the American South differently. We wanted to show this couple differently. And one of the ways we did that was by kind of choosing a color palette that wasn't the same color palette we're used to seeing. The greens and the avocados and the oranges, and sure, there's some of that in there, but there's also a lot of primary colors, a lot of fluorescent colors, like the red house that he has, and then in contrast, the blue house, which she kind of is the first one to decorate at Country Mansion, with that really bright blue. So we always, we tried to use colors that were different. And I think it's interesting, the colors that have kind of come to be chosen in television and film are not what was really out there. There was so much more out there in the 70s. And when you really dive into photography of the time and films of the time, the way we've come to represent it in our color story is kind of different than what it was. So we definitely took a stab at doing something really different there.
It's brilliant. I mean, so I don't want to get off of that for a second, but then when it comes to the end and they're like color timing and everything, are you involved in that at all? Because that could really screw up your whole palette.
That's absolutely true. So, designers very often
because designers mostly aren't in that process, and I'm really advocating that they should be.
Yeah, the best thing I've learned to do is to really talk to the cinematographer, be clear about what your palette is. I do pretty extensive palette boards
Mm-hmm.
that I show to everybody that's coming on, so everyone really knows what our color story is. And um, because you can't be there, it's really important to talk to the people that are um, in the camera department, mostly the DP, and also in post.
Yeah.
I'm working on a Bad Robot show right now with J.J. Abrams, and we have a very, very restricted color palette. It's a really, really fun show to do because it's, again, a really new way to use color that we're trying. And there's a couple locations where there's colors that just aren't in our palette. And I know they're going to have to be changed. And I've developed a really wonderful relationship with that post department where from the moment we pick a location, I'm sending them pictures and flagging like, hey, this is a color we really don't want in the palette. Is it going to be possible to dial this in and change it? And it's really important to have those conversations ahead of time because you're not going to be there when there's color timing.
Yeah.
So
Keep everyone on the same page, and because there's been times, I pick a bedspread and then I see it and I'm like, that wasn't what I picked at all. Like, how did that happen? Or how did that whole room, how did those curtains go that color? But it happens. So that
it does.
I think it's just such an intricate process because so much more can be done in post to tweak looks and extend sets
much more easily.
Yeah. So I don't know why the art department isn't involved more in post, and it really is up to the designers and art directors to get post people, give them the information of meetings that are happening 6 months before they start shooting where they're not even on yet, things like that. You have to convey all this information.
And as well, the visual effects department, I think, is a really key component to that now because they kind of take it from us in many cases now and carry it through post. So developing relationships with them as well. And, it's not like we're never involved. On George and Tammy, Igor Martinovic, the cinematographer, is just so wonderfully talented. And we were definitely on the same page with color. And he absolutely called me, before it was finished to say, have you seen it? And is there anything, do you have any notes? Or is there anything that you think we should change? And, that was really lovely because that doesn't always happen. You don't always get that
fantastic.
Call. So, it was lucky on that one. And I've definitely learned how to kind of make that happen. It happens in post and it also happens in production, as you know, because production designers and set decorators can't be on set all the time.
Yeah.
And we all have those stories of, watching dailies and something's been totally flipped and turned the other way, or they found something interesting on the street that you didn't design, but it's really become prominent. And there's only so much you can do. So you kind of just have to do the best you can and hope that everyone sticks to the plan.
That's when I say, take my name off of this.
Exactly. And now Alan we have Smith. Q-Take and we can watch. Production from far away, but you know how it is. We're busy doing other things and getting the next sets ready and building and designing. So you just have to trust your team as best you can.
And trust is everything. Did you print a lot of this wallpaper? I mean, the wallpaper selections are phenomenal. I mean, I love even in her the hospital room, that yellow and blue florals. I feel like my mom had that somewhere. It's fantastic.
I like to use real wallpaper from the 70s whenever I can find enough to do the job.
Yeah.
I have some secret places I go to that have stockpiled wallpaper. Real wallpaper is not printed. And it is printed, but it's screen printed, and it's very often many different textures and fabrics, and there's mica, and there's, that looks very different than a printed wallpaper.
Yeah,
so
it's flat.
Especially when you're doing a 70s show, to me, I always try to make it as close to real as I can. Actually getting real 70s wallpaper, which is not always very easy to work with because it's been sitting around for 50 years.
Yeah.
However, on something like the Vegas penthouse suite, that set, the whole kind of design story of that set was about scale. And that was an instance where we didn't lean into what was actually there, and we just designed for the sake of forwarding the scene.
Right.
helping the actors, helping the production, accomplish the scene and emotionally what that scene is. And we did research. Penthouses in Vegas in the 70s were actually not that big. We even found the floor plan for the landmark suites, and they were small.
Hmm.
But in that scene, she's completely alone, and I wanted her to just feel tiny in that room.
Yeah.
So that room is absolutely enormous. It's 4 times the size of what the suites were, and we added a second level. And wallpaper is just never going to be at that scale. So there's this incredible company called Flavor Paper in Brooklyn, and we designed that wallpaper and designed that huge scale of that wallpaper, and printed it on a gold leaf paper that they had. So that was the one instance where we actually designed it and printed it.
Oh man, almost every set I feel like there's some sort of pattern or wallpaper that you've given it to, and I love wallpaper obviously behind me, but yeah, I was wondering if you had to print a lot. That's great that you could find it, because as you said, stock and availability and disintegration.
I have a couple of sources, but now after 5 period projects I've done,
you've wiped them out.
I've pretty much wiped them out, and I also know which ones I still haven't used that I'm holding on to for a future project. So, eventually there will be no more left.
Yeah.
But, then we'll have to figure out how to create layers and create different textures, which we did with that wallpaper in the Vegas suite. It was a metallic paper. It had a matte print on it, and then we actually did some paint treatment on top of that. Oh. So yeah, it's important to use the real thing. It looks very different when you just get something printed and put it on the wall.
And then her first lady, it's a First Lady Acres, right?
Correct.
Her place. So that was that combo location build, or was that the location that you manipulated?
That was the location. However, there were a lot of scenes in the kitchen, and we found this incredible mid-century house in North Carolina that was definitely the place. But it had a modern kitchen, and anyone who does period shows and knows that that's the hardest thing to kind of get at a location.
Yeah.
So instead of using the kitchen, actually on the Tech Scout, I was standing in the living room, one of the living rooms, which we weren't really using, and I realized we could just build the kitchen there and actually have a big set where we weren't hiding things and shooting around things. And so we ended up building inside the house a kitchen, and then they ended up restaging a bunch of scenes there because it was such a great room. So it worked out really well.
Even like the use of the outside with the wedding scene and like the pool, and is a fantastic location.
It was a fantastic location, without a doubt.
Yeah. You have a timeline of recording studios, which I know I've done. Like, you make them look older. They have to even be older because they didn't just build them then. And then you have like decades of recording studios, and then you have decades of tour buses, which also shows. I love how the tour bus at the end is so modern and like kind of cheesy looking for that time.
In the 90s, yeah.
Yeah. And how like cool it was like in periods before. So did you take buses and redo them? Did you just build them as sets? And how did you? I've done it both ways, so I'm asking how you did it.
Yeah. So there were 11 tour buses, 11 period tour buses in the scripts, between the exteriors and the interiors, which weren't always the same, obviously. But there were 5 main tour buses in the 60s and 70s, and then the 90s one. Mm-hmm. The 90s ones we shot on real buses that we found, or that the transportation department found. Mm-hmm. But the other ones, there were a lot of big scenes in those buses. So it was a conversation very early on. And I remember going to the showrunner and saying, there's like 6 people in this scene, and it's on a bus. Are we sure this is the right location for this? And of course, Abe is so brilliant and had talked to George at length and turns out when you're on the road, these really important moments do happen on the buses because that is your private space and that is your home. So it was very intentional. So the design challenge kind of became, how do we make this realistic, but also how do we make it so we can shoot it? And Michael's 6'3", and we very quickly got a bus to the stages and realized it would not work. Sure, it would work for a small scene. These were 4, 5, 6-page scenes with sometimes 5 people in them.
Right.
So we knew that just wasn't going to work. Also, the schedule was super ambitious, so we were going to have to do them all the same week. There were various reasons that we were shooting things in certain ways, but Michael and Jessica aged pretty dramatically throughout the series and didn't want to be jumping all over the place. So we just had to figure out how to do them all quickly. And basically what we did was we welded these, we did build them into sets. And I think there were 80 panels that were upholstered by the drapery department.
Oh my God.
And we basically had all these panels up and down the side of the bus that any of them could pop out. And they would be upholstered for each of the different 5 buses. And we actually shot them concurrently. So the graph for this is like staggering. I wish you could see it visually. But the art directors figured out a way where we were basically shooting in one bus as we were flipping the next bus. So we just shot all 5 buses in a row by popping these panels out. And it was like this choreographed dance between construction and drapery and set deck and visual effects and production, where for like 6 days we shot all of these scenes on the buses, just bouncing back and forth and changing out sometimes one side at a time as they moved from bus to bus to get their scenes. So it was a whole engineering and scheduling feat. And I'm super proud of it because there's just such incredible scenes in those buses. And, it feels great when you feel like you've contributed to the way something was shot or the way something was acted or the way something was blocked or choreographed, and it really works. So that was an instance of that for sure.
The buses to me are fantastic because it's a time capsule that you've created of like, not only for the, for the scene or whatever, but it's like, this is where we are, like decade-wise, style-wise. Like, they're very purposeful in telling these stories, and I just thought they were all great. I loved them all. They were great. And I know finding those tables, like finding all that stuff, that's not easy. And I know upholstery-wise, it's crazy. So I can't believe you would change them all out. That's insane. It's awesome.
Well, James Kent is just such a phenomenal decorator. Such a phenomenal decorator. And it was our first collaboration, actually. And we're working on a show right now, where we were and will be again. And he's just so fantastic and so good. And he brought with him Jen Sluck, who's our draper. And I mean, that drapery department on this show, not only did they do those buses, which they may never forgive me for, but they also, Tammy's suite, that penthouse suite, we had to build 40-foot tables for them to even sew the curtains. I mean, it was just like, it was just an unbelievable feat and a wonderful, we had to move the drapery department into the construction department just because of the scale of the sets. So, they were a huge collaboration, a huge part of this design.
Oh, I love it. I love that. I love having a draper. Like having that.
I know. Once you start having a draper, you can't even ever imagine not doing it again.
I know. You get spoiled and you learn so much from them. I've learned so much from, trying to see like, can we do this? Can we do that? And they're like, no, you don't do that. You do this. And you're like, oh, yeah. Duh, that's
no. Jen did window treatments for a long, long time before she got in the movie business. She's from Pittsburgh, and her sketches and what she brings to the design of the sets, especially in the 70s with the drapery and 60s and 70s kind of things, it's just really, really wonderful.
And then how many stages did you hit? How many different arenas did you have to hit or flip over? I mean, it's like
a lot.
I don't
usually 6 or 7 an episode. There were so many venues.
I really need you to do a set count. I really want to.
I know. I wish I was a little more prepared with the numbers on this one. I don't want to overwhelm myself by actually tallying it up again. It might be too traumatizing. But there was one theater that really worked in Wilmington. There was like one theater we knew we could use, and we probably used it for 4 different performances by being tricky and hiding things and
Lighting.
changing certain things and shooting and lighting. And yeah, all those things we do. But, it wasn't going to cover 20 or 30. And then there were outdoor arenas and there were stadiums. And, you know, everyone approached this with such creativity, all of these challenges. We did 2 performances that were both outdoor, one an early performance. I think it was in episode 2, and then one a later performance in episode 5. One was a small kind of like fairground performance early in their career,
Right.
and then the other was a big stadium show. And we actually built them back to back in the middle of a football field that had 2 different style bleachers the locations department found.
Oh, wow.
So on one side, we were able to do this kind of smaller show. There's people in folding chairs, and then there's kind of bleachers. And then we just put up blue screen behind it. And then right behind that was our stadium set on the other side of the football field. So that had more of a stadium feel, and we built kind of a big stage with the towers of the speakers and all that kind of amazing 70s rock and country environment. But you had to constantly be thinking in that way. How can you can't do that many performances and move the company all the time. So you kind of have to figure out how to double up a lot of locations and be smart with things like that. Then, we also did the ballroom at the Landmark, an enormous set. There's a lot of VFX. And we did some stadium shows where, to be honest, we built very little, and we counted on light, and we counted on sound design. And we had to really all get on the same page about what we were going to provide and what we weren't. Because, to do 3 performances that are all at different music venues on one soundstage in a day takes a little figuring out. And you don't get to just sort of design what you want,
Yeah. Logistically, it's not easy. And you think like, oh,
Exactly.
we'll just do that. Like, the AD comes out with this one-liner and you're like, what? No, we have to change over stuff. You're like, you're going to have to take a break, or you're going to have to do this. And you got to work together on that, like, especially for changeovers and stuff.
Yeah, it's true. And as you know, we can protest about the schedule somewhat, but
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Very often we just have to make it work.
I know that you have to go. I have one other question about the whole series. It seems like you had a theme of like reflections or seeing through things and everything, and I just wanted to know if that was purposeful or if that was like, did you talk about that and then like relay to the decorator, define surfaces, or with the DP?
Very much, and very early conversations with the DP and the director about that language, because that was really the way they wanted to shoot it. It was to them a commentary on personal life versus fame. It was also a way to show characters being alone or to show them fragmented. So they had those conversations very early, John and Igor. And then when I came on, it was sort of my job to figure out how I could help inform the way they wanted to shoot that. So a couple examples of that in the Quonset Hut recording studio, that we recreated pretty faithfully. I mean, there was a lot of research about that studio because it was pretty iconic. So we recreated that very well. There were these burlap dividers in that set. And what we did is at face level, we put a piece of glass at 45 degrees. And what that allowed us to do was every time they were in the recording studio, whether they were singing alone or together, or one was in the booth and one was singing, you could always see both of them in frame. That was probably their most successful relationship, their working relationship, arguably. They were always kind of on fire together when they were singing.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do that. And then, and to see them together. And then an example of kind of the opposite is in First Lady Acres. Her bathroom / dressing room was a very big set.
Oh, I loved
and
it.
there was a scene where she's taking pills and she's kind of in a very low moment. And there was this vanity, and there were these mirrors behind the vanity. And I had this idea of putting a 2-way mirror in one of the doors of the closet that was behind her. So the camera could actually be behind the 2-way mirror and shoot her with the mirror in front of her and create that sort of infinity shattered effect where there's like,
That's beautiful.
16 of her in the frame. And with no need for visual effects or anything, because it was just in a two-way mirror. It was a practical effect. So yeah, it was really fun to kind of develop and explore that language with them. They were so on board with how they were going to shoot it that way.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
everything I gave them was like candy, and they were just so excited. And then when I saw dailies, it was like better than I could have ever imagined, kind of every time.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love when like it all goes right and you're like, oh, they used that. They shot
Yeah.
through that. That's why I got it. Oh, that sounds so good. All right.
Yeah, this was definitely one of those projects for sure. I mean, the collaboration was just so wonderful. John and Igor are such visual storytellers.
Mm-hmm.
So I always felt very rewarded when I saw what they shot.
Yeah, it's nice when you feel safety or you feel like you're in good hands, especially when you start seeing dailies and you're like, okay, I can breathe.
Exactly.
I know you got to run, so thank you so much for chatting with me. I just
My pleasure.
loved the show. I mean, I watched it twice. I loved it. So it's a pleasure to speak with you
so
and
much.
to get to learn about all the sets and everything. And good luck for Emmys. I have my fingers
Thank you
crossed
so
for
much. Thank you so much. Great talking with you today.
I am super thankful for Jonah's time. We didn't have much of it. It seemed like it went by so fast, and I didn't get to ask him about working at Hallmark in his early days. Funny enough, he was on this Kelly Martin mystery wheel, and I was on the Leah Thompson one. So we never met back then, but it's kind of at the same time. So I didn't get to ask him that. And many other questions. I had so many questions for him about the show and the colors and integrating the music, and I just thought, he gave us some great details about his work. And I'm super happy that he gave up like a source of wallpaper. Well, one, I mean, you got to keep your secrets, people. I get it. I don't blame him. So, yeah, I'm super thankful for him coming on the show and getting to talk about that, because I watched it, like I said, I watched it in December, and then I rewatched it to speak to him, and I was happy to do it. Totally happy to do it. So I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wanup for Decorating Pages.